Hi, I'm Tony. Welcome to my shop. Today we are going to make this. It is a little epoxy acorn ball on top of an apple bottle topper. So a lot of starts and stops in the project, but jumping back in here at the end so you can see what it is we're going to be working on today. So do appreciate you stopping by. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, hitting that like button, giving me a comment, really help me grow the channel, and it lets me know that I'm doing stuff you want to see. So let's get to the project. Today we've got a kind of fun project going on, and I'm also testing out a new microphone because we know how the sound goes sometimes in here. Probably hear the heater in the back. We'll see if this noise canceling helps a bit. Anyway, today's project we're going to be working on a bottle stopper. I know that's a lot of people make the little bottle topper, bottle stopper things, and I have a couple of cool ideas, I think. This time I'm going to use a little resin cast that I did with an Acorn. So you can see it's got some glitter in there, and I don't know, how do I show you this from here? There you go. Got a little acorn suspended up in there. So I'm going to make a bottle topper with this embedded in the top of it. So it's going to look like I don't know how to explain it really, but we're going to basically make this a decoration, a little embellishment on top of our bottle topper. We'll rotate it around to get the acorn just right, floating up there, and it should be kind of fun. So the tools we need for that, obviously, you're going to need a bottle stopper chuck. So this is threaded 5/8 16 TPI, and from either end it's an 1 1/4 8 TPI. So that goes on the lathe. For that, you're going to need a 5/16 drill bit to drill your hole, and then you're going to need a tap. So we've got our 3/8 inch 16 TPI tap to tap our hole, and then to drill that, I like to use the regular old Jacobs chuck on the lathe and a drill bit. I'll put it in the chuck first so we get a perfectly centered hole. I'm not trying to balance it out on the other end. And the blank we're going to use today is from one of my skew videos earlier when we were practicing on making elm, trying to get a nice finish. There's no sanding or anything on that. It's just right off the skew. It's a pretty piece of elm. So I'll mount it in the chuck on this end. We'll decide how long we want it to be, drill our hole in it, flip her around, and get turning. So thanks for joining me. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I do appreciate the support, and the comments and the likes really do help me out as well. So thanks for joining me. Let's get to it. Okay, so like I said earlier, we're going to start out with that chuck first so we can get our length cut and just part off the piece we want here. This should fit in this end over here. So what we'll do is we'll center it up. I'll use the live center on the other end. This might be just a little small, and I might have to grab my other chuck. Let's see. Oh, it might be. So let's I don't have my lathe plugged in right now. I would never take my hand off of the chuck key up here, and there's a reason for that. In the shop I work at during the week, we have some big metal spinning lathes and stuff. So one time a guy left the chuck key up in the top, and someone flipped the lathe on, and that thing went flying across the room at a speed that scared the bejesus. Someone could have really seriously been injured. Scared me enough that every time I come out to do something like that, I make sure that I have the chuck key, my hand on it, or it's out of the chuck. So I've got it mounted up here. This chuck here is a very inexpensive one from Amazon, and it had an insert for the 1-inch headstock, spindle stock on my jet lathe. And when I got the new lathe, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to buy an adapter. And I found out it had an insert in it. It was already threaded for that. And I used the bejesus out of this one. It is honestly one of my favorite chucks for quick on and off and everything like that. So we got ourselves set up here with our blank in the chuck and the live center holding it on the other end. The reason for that was to center it perfectly on our device here. So we get a nice spin. I'll go ahead and power up the lathe now. Once we have it powered up, turn the speed down to 0, power on, spin it up. See, we're spinning pretty true there. We're not going to have a problem. So what I'm going to do is put my face mask on, because I know Mike Rowe says safety third, but I still like my face. Probably the only person who does, but it's good to have a face. And I'm going to come over here now with just a standard parting tool, little Robert Sorby, and pull just a few inches off. This isn't going to be an important dimension here. And normally when I'm parting, I'll get it almost all the way to there. So I have a nice flat area. Oops, dropped my parting tool. And then I'll finish it off with a back saw. take a little of the pressure off over here. And that way I can just flatten that once we get it done on the lathe while it's spinning before we drill our hole. So we have a nice flat surface there for that. I know a lot of guys just go right through it, but I don't like the other piece flying off and getting lost in the shavings or something. There we go. So we've got our original blank, got a little left over for another project, and we should be able to move that right along. Okay, I just went over there and tested out the microphone. It does muffle quite a bit when I lower my face mask. So I'm gonna have to figure out when to do the talking and when not to do the talking thing so that you can hear me clearly. So all I'm gonna do now is face off the end of this. We will be putting in our Jacobs chuck to do our hole drilling here. I'm gonna go ahead and just use a standard, this is a Hurricane by Crown 5/8 inch flute spindle gouge. Okie dokie. I have set up, got myself this piece of apple. It's got some spalt in it, but I think the direction I want to go with it, we should be able to pull that off pretty nicely. I'm going to go ahead though and have to start from scratch here, turning it around. So put the bottle stopper jig on here just like we normally would. So when I'm making the bottle stoppers, usually I start with a square piece, usually an offcut, and I've already drilled and tapped the hole in this one. So I just put it on my chuck here, make sure that that round part's going to go inside the defect. Nice and tight, looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and make that round. And I'll do that with a continental gouge. Get my face shield. I'm going to go all the way up, 1200 RPM. Here we go. Once we get all the corners knocked off, I will go ahead and switch to a bowl gouge for this. It's round enough to go to a bowl gouge. Is that about as much fun as watching paint dry? Just trying to make changes on the fly a little bit here and see where we're at in terms of the material. I have to make sure we can get round on the bottom before I bother with the rest. There's a lot of punk in this one. It's punky. So I want to make sure that we're going to be able to get through that. See how it's all punk here? That might not be a usable piece either. There's a lot. Oh, there's some little critter, leftover critter in there. So let's get the spindle gouge out. Take a quick look here. Just trying to listen to the wood to see if it's going to work with us or not. So I can tighten that up with a little CA, and the apple ends up being so pretty once you get past all the goo. And we don't need to worry about that corner right there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish rounding up the top here. Okay, should be round. See where our punk is. See, that will be pretty if we can get this punky stuff solidified. So I'm going to put a little bit. You watch, it'll smoke, I bet. It's going to get all smoky. So again, Star Bond, super fast thin. And I just put a couple drops here and there. It'll soak right down into all this punky stuff. And that spalt line is what I'm trying to get up to so we don't overchange the coloring. Now again, this is a kind of a cheap trick for trying to stretch blanks. Now we could obviously go out, pick up a nice, more expensive piece of wood. I'm trying to make use of offcuts. Even the casting was leftover resin from another project. So what I try to do is have a couple of little molds ready if I'm going to be casting. So when I have leftovers, I can pour it in. Sometimes I'll end up with 2 or 3 different pours in one funky little mold. And with those, I make stuff like these little globes and occasionally an interesting pen blank or something. Oops. Okay. So that is pretty saturated with the Starbond super fast thin. Put a couple little shots of accelerator on there. Didn't smoke. Kind of surprised. That should solidify that up well enough that we can get a decent cut on there. So before I do that, though, I'm going to go ahead and put a fresh edge on the spindle gouge so we get really good cuts. So we've got a nice fresh edge on our spindle gouge. That should give us a nice smooth surface up here. Quite a bit better. You can even see the punky wood here kind of filled in, and we're going to take care of that next. That should look splendiferous. See, it's through all the punk. That CA stabilized that beautifully. I'll touch this up a little bit down here as we get closer to finishing. Now it's time for us to flatten off this edge up here, and then we'll drill our hole. So we've already determined that the diameter of our ball here is 40 millimeters. That's the widest spot. We'll call it 30 now. I think it's 40. 39 and change. Let's call it 39 and change. So I think we really do still want that 30 to get to rotate where we want to rotate and still cover that up. It's going to have to sink in there pretty good. So I'm going to start out again with with this size hole. I mean with the one size up from here, because remember we decided this one was too small. It's too small. So with it being too small, we'll move up. Or do we want to start with a small hole, then a bigger hole, then a bigger hole, so that we can kind of progress through those? Might take us 3 bits to get there, but it might also save us some big torque on it. Although this apple is a lot drier and a lot different than trying to turn dry elm. So I'm going to crank us down to 350. There you go. Shield down and see if we can drill ourselves a hole. So that's 1 inch deep. Since our ball is 1.5 inches roughly in diameter, 1 inch deep should be plenty for us to rotate around in. So you can see it fit in there like that with that look, but since we want to center the acorn in it, we have to be able to sink it past the flat spot from the mold. So we'll move up now to the next size drill bit, Forstner bit. And I think that should work. And if it doesn't work, well, that's 2 in a row, and I will call it a day. It might be time for me to rethink my passions. Here we go. Okay. I don't think I turned on the compressor, so it's just whatever's left in it. Now we've got a fairly thin wall here. We can stick our our little buddy in here. And we should be able to rotate it around to where he is centered now. So there we go. We have our acorn centered in the middle. You can still rotate it just to it's absolutely perfect. We know where we are on this here. So I'm going to taper this down now a little bit, but not too much because that's the thickness of our wall. So maybe what I'll do is I'll add a bead on the top of that because that might make it pretty attractive. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue our acorn in so we can work from that spot moving forward. But I think a little bead up here would look nice. I'm also going to pull out the Jacob's chuck now so I don't smack an elbow or cut myself there. I know that's always more entertaining when the gentleman doing the demonstration starts bleeding spontaneously, but I'm going to try to avoid that one today. I'm also going to grab a smaller spindle gouge. Now we'll go ahead and put a little round little bead on the inside of that as well. And then I'm just going to use the left wing of a small spindle gouge here. And that looks nice. And then we'll get our little acorn set there. So, is it a perfect casting? No, it's not. But is it cute? I think it is. So we just got to make sure that we've got it lined up in a way that we're happy with it. And then we can cover up that flat bottom. And I think that's it right there. So for that, I'm going to use Star Bond Medium. And you know what? I might wait. My brain is telling me to give this a wait. So we're going to pull this down, finish doing our detail here and sand that because I don't want to put a bunch of pressure on that acrylic ball, little epoxy ball at the end. So let's go ahead and finish our shape here. Remember, this has to be on the top of a bottle, so we don't want it to be too bulky. Don't think I told the story yet about this apple. So we have a fella in our woodturning club, the Inland Northwest Woodturners. His name is John Fox. And he has a beautiful wood pile, and he's just a generous guy. And he had me come over to show me how to use a chainsaw a little better and give me a few tips and tricks. And he also had just gotten this giant, old, dry apple stump. I mean, it was, I don't know, 6-7 feet long, maybe 30 inches in diameter, and it was already dried out, a lot of punky spots and rot and stuff. And he said I was welcome to it. And so we took at it, made a bunch of blanks, and made some beautiful bowls that have all already sold. And then all the offcuts I've been stretching out. I made a couple clocks. I've made some bottle stoppers, a couple of small ring dishes and stuff like that. I've really enjoyed turning it. So I got more apple from somebody else who didn't realize just what a nightmare apple can be when it's green. You turn it, no matter how thin you turn it, it wants to crack. And so I have it all cut up into blanks now, waiting for that fresh apple to get ready to do some fun stuff like this. Okay, that is actually going to be ready for sanding now. Believe it or not, got a pretty nice finish. A lot of these I could whip through a little bit faster. I'm going to come in here, I think, one more time with a carbide just so I can pull that all the way down to a nice flat spot there. But I mean, off a nice, freshly sharpened tool, it's nice enough generally for the markets I'm in. If I were to just leave it like this and not update it to a nice fancy shine. But we got this kind of nice cup, this wine goblet look, and then we'll put our ball on the top. I think it'll be a lovely piece. I have this square carbide, another cheap Amazon tool. It still has an edge on. I think I've put one replacement edge on this since I bought it. It's like 5 years. Just rotate it around. You can see this is the last of the edges though. And all I'm going to try to do is I'll get in there just in front of the, yeah, just in front of the actual metal part of my chuck, and just clean that edge up a little bit. So just that little detail against the, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, it's even hard to see just above it here, but just that little bead detail is enough to really make it stand out from the stainless steel bottom that we'll put on this one. So I will go ahead and set up for a little sanding now. I know no one likes to watch that, but I'll go ahead and do it. I'll cut it out or speed it up or something like that, but I'll keep talking to myself while I'm doing it. I've got this little Fulton abrasives deal. It goes from 150 all the way to 600 for spindles, which is cloth backed. Little box like that lasts me forever. I'll go ahead and turn on the dust collector too. I've got it sanded just to 320, and I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of our shop-made grit here. You hear me say it almost every video. Got the recipe from McDaniel's Style Woodturning. Great guy, super supportive, good ideas. His videos are always engaging, and I always learn something whenever I watch one of them. We're probably similar skill levels. I think that he's definitely more creative than I am. But so I'm just going to put on some of the shop-made grit here. Slowly work it into the wood. And get around our rim, but not all the way inside, because we don't want this the wood to get waxy where we're going to be putting our star bond to hold our little globe in. Another friend of mine, his name is Gonzo, also known as Mr. Lathes and Knives. He's a tattoo artist and a phenomenal wood turner. He also just recently came out with his own type of hard wax, which is a nice carnauba and mineral oil kind of blend that's really, really good. I might do a little video on that just so you guys can see how good it is. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I like to make my own stuff, but every now and then when you got a friend or a buddy who comes up with something different and smart and makes a difference, you know, I like to support them. So I got a little bit of punk up there. So all I'm going to do now is put the actual shine on. Shine on, you crazy diamond. Sorry, Pink Floyd references happen. I just can't help myself sometimes. Okay, let's get a clean cloth here. So this is the hard wax version that I use here. It's a little softer than most people's. Mineral oil, beeswax, carnauba. Also got the idea and the recipe from the McDaniel's. So I just like to get it all on there, and then I let the little friction do the rest of the work. Gets into the pores, melts it in nice. It's all over me. And then in the areas that I wasn't happy with here, look like we got a little bit of dry grain in there. I'll go with the grain and rub some more of this wax in and let it set up a bit before we buff it out. So I'll be back when that's ready for buffing. Okay, I've got one of those typical, what do you call these, microfiber type terry cloths you use to wash your cars. Get them at Costco by I think you get 36 of them for 17 bucks or something like that. And we'll use that to buff it out. Don't leave it in around your shavings because you can't get the shavings off. And it's ready for us to mount our little globe. We are ready to mount our ball. So again, this is just kind of a fun project. This isn't something I would do on purpose, but I had made this little acorn ball from some scraps, like I said, and I thought making a bottle topper out of it would be kind of cool. So that is what we're going to do. So right there is about where we're going to want it. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of medium in here. And I'm just going to go around the rim here because we have a round ball. It should be able to fit in there. We're keeping it at this angle. It should allow us to tweak it a little bit. And I think I want the top that way. So get it in there. Make sure that we're covered all the way around. Oops, slipped. Make sure we're straight. And I'm just going to bring my tailstock up here. I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on it, but I want to put enough pressure to hold it in place while it dries. And it's got a nice little hole there in the middle. So when I get a little bit closer, I'll grab a little dusty waxy cloth here. I know that probably doesn't make for a great picture. And press it in. Now it should dry in there after a couple of minutes, and we'll have our acorn right in there, and I'll pull you back in and show you what that looks like. All right, so there you go. We have our acorn and apple bottle topper. We just suspended the little acorn in some epoxy there, a little resin. It's leftover resin, so as you can see there's a line in there between the different pours. When I poured the first part and the second part, I put some pop glitter in there, which is that gold fleck. You get back, you can kind of see it dance around in there. So anyway, that's where we're at. So let's take it off the lathe now. We'll get over there, put a stainless steel bottom on there, and it'll be ready for a wrap up. Okay, we've got all of our pieces done now. So this is the little bottle topper kit that I use. And I like to sometimes just screw out the center part here and put it in separately so I don't over torque it. So basically it's already threaded. We already have our threads that we put in earlier, so it should just slide in nice and easy. And there's really no reason to glue these in if you've got good threads. It'll hold on just fine, and that way someone can take it apart later if they need to wash it or something gets stained. I've had a couple where people have like dropped it in the dip at a party or something like that, and they're like, oh no, how do I clean it? And I'm like, well, it screws apart. Just take it apart there. So I got that in nice. And then we just screw in our bottom here. It's not rocket science, but I figured if we're making a bottle topper, might as well go all the way through, right? Show you the whole thing. So there it is. One acorn topped apple bottle topper kit put together here in the shop from just kind of some scraps and a little free time. So hopefully you had a good time. I really do appreciate you joining me. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that comment button, all that other fun stuff that helps the channel grow. I do appreciate it. Thanks for spending your day with me. Have a great one.